Alright, with DZ-BT06, that must mean that we must also get some evolved forms for our main character and main villain, or rival, which in this case it will be the new form of Gramgrace and Favrneel, so let's begin. But first, here are the promos if you buy Deer Days, and here are the heal fodder promos for Great Nature and Gold Paladin, not going over them. And now to the new evolved form of Gramgrace, Sword Saint Knight Dragon Emperor Gramgrace C. Damn, the art looks cool. It's a grade 3 with 30 power and the skill is Count Vanguard. Your persona ride power increases also affect your back row units, which is basically the same as original Gramgrace, in which the second skill is Act Vanguard. Once per turn, cost Soul Blast 1, choose one of your back row center rear guards and it gets this skill into the end turn. Count Rear Guard, when this card attacks from the back row, it gets plus 10k power. And if your opponent's Vanguard is at least at grade 3, cost Energy Blast 3, this and that unit also get crit plus 1. Comparing this to the original one causes you Counter Blast, but also lets you draw. This one, instead of doing the Counter Blast, you Energy Blast without the draw, but you give this unit along with that back row unit an extra crit. It is up to personal preferences what you see as better, but the extra crit pressure can actually be a lot more threatening than many people can see, especially an extra big rearguard attack. And also, let's not forget about that one rearguard that can give your Vanguard extra drive checks. And then the third skill, Act Vanguard, at the end of the battle, your back row rearguard attack, you can put that to Soul, and if you put a card to Soul, draw a card at the end of the turn. In which this last skill is a downgrade to the original because the original one can draw right off the bat after putting to Soul. This one requires at the end of the turn, which can actually suck more than actually drawing during mid-battle. So in an overall case, this one could be debatable if it's better or not, but if you do like that extra crit pressure, I would say this one's probably better. And I have to say that crit pressure can be a little more threatening than the draw, especially with the amount of extra draw power you can get from Cater and especially the extra superior calling. So overall, I would say this one can pretty much straight up replace the original. And funny, it doesn't require the original either. And then we go to the rival or antagonist, Purgatory Great Dragon Emperor Favrneel Rheingold, which is a grade 3 with taking power and the skill is Count Vanguard. During your turn, if your opponent's Vanguard is at least at grade 3 and your soul has the original Favrneel, all your front row units get plus 10k power and 1 crit. And then to the second skill, Auto Vanguard. At the beginning of your main phase, choose a card from your drop zone and put it to soul, and then choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So comparing this to the original has these first two skills basically locked in. Now this new one has them separate, which actually makes it better and also improves it from the original, because the original wants you to put a card from your hand to soul. This one lets you put from drop to soul, which gives you a little more option, but it gives the other one a little more early game viability because early game you rather use your hand, and also the 10k and 1 crit is also linked to the put to soul skill and only gives it to itself, while this one actually gives it to the whole entire front row, which already makes a huge improvement. The only thing you really kind of lost is the deck filtering, because the original one lets you draw a card as well while you put the card from your hand to soul, while this one wants you to put the card from your drop to soul, but you still don't lose a card from your hand. But already an improvement. But the third skill is Auto Vanguard. Once per turn, at the end of the battle, this card attack. If your total grades a Dark State card in Soul is 13 or more, you can either Counter Blast 2 or put a Favrneel from your hand to Soul to stand this unit and drive -1 the end turn. Basically like the original, where you basically do a double attack Vanguard with an extra crit. The main difference here is the cost, because this one has another alternate cost where you could put a Favrneel from your hand to Soul. And that can be a big plus in my end, because sometimes you just don't have the Counter Blast to do so just being able to alternate costs is just very nice, but also increases your grade count in a way, even though you're giving up Persona Ride. But you do have Favrneel support that lets you do Persona Ride without Persona Riding. And yes, you do have counter charge in the deck as well, but the counter charge sometimes doesn't go fast enough. And finally, to the last skill, Auto Soul. At the end of your turn, if your Vanguard is the Purgatory Dragon deity Favrneel, you can write this card as rest. So basically, you can put this to Soul in early game, which is doable with the original Favrneel as well, and then just superior ride this one on top of it at the end of the turn. So compared to Gramgrace, you do want to run the original, especially to activate this at full power, but it can be debatable which one you would prefer in the ride deck, especially since this is Dark State we're talking about, where you can get all the soul charging, so by chance you could even get the original one to soul, but the original one you can only run one copy of, so I would say still run the original one in the ride deck, and then just put this one in the main deck. Besides, you can superior ride this at the end of the turn, but definitely see this as an evolution upgrade. And then finally, here's the secret rares. And finally, we're getting the reveal of Glory Maelstrom next week, along with a new front trigger with new skills. I am actually looking forward to both of that, especially Glory Maelstrom. So that's it for the new Gramgrace and Favrneel. What do you guys think of it? Overall, they are pretty cool design looking upgrades, especially since with Dear Days 2, it kind of makes sense to make evolutions for both of the main characters. A little strange thing I do find though is that they didn't introduce any support for them. Like, they made evolutions, but they did not put any support cards, so I just find that a little weird. But I really hope they get more rearguard support, because both decks kind of just need those. But as a fun deck, and even in way budget, I have to say, these are pretty fun. But in that, that's it for this, and see you all next time.